He was standing in a room full of people, friends, family, people who had known him his whole life. Someone was telling a story. Everyone was laughing. He laughed too, but inside there was a quiet voice, a familiar voice. You don't belong here. Not because anyone said anything, not because anyone excluded him, just a feeling. A distance he couldn't close, like everyone else had been given a script and he was improvising, like he was watching life happen from behind a window he couldn't open. Maybe you know this feeling, the sense that you're an outsider in your own life, that everyone else has somewhere they belong, a tribe, a home, a place where they fit, and you're still searching, still waiting, still not quite there. This is the psychology of people who feel like they don't belong anywhere. Not the loneliness of being alone, something deeper, something older, the sense that you are fundamentally different, that if people really knew you, they'd see it too. The thing that doesn't fit. It usually starts early, much earlier than you remember. A childhood where you had to translate yourself, where the language spoken at home didn't match the language outside, where your emotions were too big or too quiet, where you learned that being yourself made things complicated. Maybe your family moved a lot. Maybe you were the different one, the sensitive one, the quiet one, the one who thought too much. Maybe you learned that fitting in meant hiding, that belonging required performance, that the real you was too much or not enough. So you learned to adapt, to read the room, to become whatever the situation needed. At school, you were one version, at home, another, with friends, a third. And you got good at this. So good that people started saying you were easy to be around, likable, chameleon. But inside, something was happening. The more you adapted, the more you lost track of who you were underneath. The more you performed, the more you felt like an imposter. The more you belonged on the surface, the more you felt like you didn't belong at all. Because here's the thing, true belonging doesn't come from fitting in, it comes from being seen. And you've spent so long hiding that you don't know how to be seen anymore. You've built a life where people like the version you show them, and you've never felt more alone. There's a specific cost to this pattern. You start to believe that there's something wrong with you, that you're broken, that everyone else has something you lack, a key you never got, a door you can't find. You watch people form bonds that seem effortless. You see them laugh together, fight together, come back together. And you wonder why that doesn't happen for you, why you're always on the outside, why you never quite make it in. Psychologists call this the chronic outsider syndrome. It's not a diagnosis, it's a description of what happens when a child learns that safety comes from being unseen, when the nervous system decides that belonging is dangerous because belonging requires being known, and being known, in your early experience, led to something painful: rejection, criticism, disappointment, or just absence, the quiet, persistent absence of being reflected back. So your brain built a different path. It learned to observe rather than participate, to analyze rather than feel, to perform rather than be. And for a while, this worked. You survived. You made it through. But survival mode is not the same as living, and somewhere along the way, you stopped even trying to belong. You stopped expecting it. You started to believe that this is just who you are, the outsider, the one who doesn't quite fit. Here's what you don't see from inside the pattern. You're not broken. You're not missing something. You learned to belong by disappearing. And you've been so busy being what everyone needs that you forgot to figure out what you need, who you are, where you actually want to be. The mask that helped you survive is now what keeps you separate. The hidden truth is that belonging starts with self.
You can't be seen by others if you don't know how to show up as yourself. You can't find your people if you're always performing. The translation you learned as a child, the constant adaptation, it was brilliant. It kept you safe. But you don't need to translate anymore. The people who taught you to hide are gone. The places that required you to be small are behind you. There's another layer to this. When you've spent your whole life feeling like you don't belong, you develop a specific kind of hunger, not for people exactly, for proof, for evidence that you're not invisible, that you exist, that you matter. And this hunger can drive you towards the wrong people, towards situations where you're still performing, still hiding, still waiting for someone to finally see you. But here's the paradox. The more you perform, the less you're seen. The more you adapt, the more you disappear. The belonging you're looking for is not something you can perform your way into. It's something you have to risk. You have to risk being too much, being too quiet, being whatever it is you've been hiding. You have to risk that maybe, just maybe, someone will see that and stay. If this was about you, if you've spent your life feeling like you don't belong, here's what I want you to know. You are not an outsider because something is wrong with you. You are an outsider because you learned to be. You learned to watch from the edges because the center felt unsafe. You learned to translate yourself because your language wasn't spoken. You learned to disappear because being seen was too risky. And these were not failures. These were survival skills. They worked. They kept you alive. But you don't need them anymore. The threat is gone. The danger has passed. You are allowed to take up space now. You are allowed to be seen. You are allowed to find your people, not by fitting in, but by showing up as yourself. It will feel terrifying at first, showing up without the mask, letting people see the parts you've been hiding. The terror is not a sign you're doing something wrong. It's a sign you're doing something real. The belonging you've been looking for is not something you find. It's something you allow. By being seen, by letting yourself be known, by risking the possibility that maybe, just maybe, you're not too much, you're not too little, you're exactly what someone has been looking for. You've been standing behind the window long enough. It's time to come in, not to fit, to be.